Now, this is the KhoodeelaarTV channel broadcasting on the Baby Angel Geronimo editions platform. This is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV channel being broadcast on Saturday, the 19th of August 2023. Now, on page 7 of the I newspaper, there is this headline: How Labour's love-in with Blair is being resuscitated. Well, this headline is a stupid one because it's contradictory. You can only resuscitate something that is dead or almost dead. The point is that Tony Blair never died. And the biggest headline grabbers, locally at least in Tower Hamlets in East London, in the period, say, 2003 to 2005, were created by George Galloway. George Galloway was the one who was kicked out of the Labour Party by the Shaitan himself, Tony Blair, the Shaitan. So, 20 years on, there is no sign of George Git Galloway, and there is no sign whatsoever anywhere in the British Fleet Street or anywhere else in the media of any question that the Shaitan needs to answer. And it is the Shaitan that has caused the most severe damages to the public aspect of Tower Hamlets Council. For example, he created the appearance of legitimacy for the transfer of the largest number of council owned housing stock to the gang of crooks called Popla Harka. And he created the biggest disaster as Deputy Prime Minister called John Prescott. And John Prescott, the moron, failed to understand even the most basic concepts of society, the most basic concept about social housing. And he acted as the Shaitan's envoy as he put pressure on the then cabal, also known as the leadership of the Tower Hamlets Council, to agree to give away the housing stock to the gang of crooks called Harka. So we shall be looking at the Harka in this edition as the start of the update. Let's say So, Popla Harka is actually HARCA, is supposed to be about housing and regeneration community association. The whole statement is false. It says Harka is the landlord of about 9,000 homes in the East London area, a quarter of which have been sold leasehold. The remainder are let on assured tenancies at subsidized rent levels. Poplar Housing Association in the East End of London is landlord of about 9,000 homes in East London area, a quarter of which have been sold leasehold. And it's supposed to be a charity, a housing association, social housing. And it is apparently founded 13th of September 1996, 26 years ago, and the founder is named there as Steve Stride. The revenue is 54.6 million 2016. Net income is 10.1 million 2016. Total assets 506 million 2016. Number of employees 300 full-time equivalents 2016. Now, if you multiply 9,000 properties by the actual market value, now you can begin to see the £1 billion worth. And it is a complete and utter pack of lies, the articles about Harka. Now, in 2018, when the crisped market was the subject of a degeneration bid by Harka with the collusion of the local Hrs Council, I took part I took part in only a small number of public kind of events broadcast on satellite. But what I noticed was that the so called members of the community who were supposedly introduced as leaders and activists, sick making ward activists, these individuals did appear on the programs, some of which I appeared on as well. But they had no idea. They were clueless about housing, and they remain clueless because what they have proven by their appearances on these platforms is that they're quite happy to express satisfaction that they're appearing on a program. I shall find one particular edition in which one of the participants, this is just for the records, unknown to me, was sat next to me, was arranged to sit next to me, and I found it extremely uncomfortable to suffer the statement this individual made. So let's check if we can find that particular one. Remember, this is talking about Tony Blair apparently being described as the return Apparently, the return of Tony Blair. Now, as I said, the Shah never left. So the question of his return doesn't arise. It's illogical. How these so called English journalists keep making the stupid mistake logical, illogical. This is extraordinary. All right. So this is the edition of this 27th of June 2018, and I want to play this just strictly as evidence, as reference, nothing to do with me, but I was shown, set next to the individual making this statement. Completely stupid. Look at the fucking facial fucking presenter. Fuck off. Shit. What's the fucking point? So there was this introduction before me, and it's completely fucking stupid. It is disgusting, stupid, and ignorant. Now, Tony Blair is responsible for the destruction of the Tower Hamlets Council housing stock to such an extent that now, this is 2020, the housing stock got transferred about 16 years ago, 20 years ago, and the undertaking that the council gave to existing tenants on the properties was that this was going to be win-win, because it would be transformed by the properties being improved, refurbished, etc., etc., which has not happened, and that people would be able to hold Popla Harka accountable. Now, the second biggest collection, the amount of housing stock transferred from Townless Council to a gang of crooks, took place when the criminals called Tower Hamlets Community Housing were floated by the racist criminal Mike Tyrrell, Tyrrell the Terrible. Now, the current position is that after all the years of criminality, lying, fraud, fabrication, etc., Tower Hamlets Community Housing, also known as THCH, failed to deliver anything. Not only that, it has been now confirmed by an official UK central government department that it lacks basic capacity. And in all these years, the so-called dedicated media outlets like Inside Housing, they have fucked up. They fucked up the fucking facts, and they've ignored the persistent, perpetual degeneration of Tower Hamlets community housing. And it has been decided now that Tower Hamlets community housing would effectively cease to be, and instead of the property returned to Tower Hamlets Council itself, they are sending it lock, stock, and barrel to the other bigger gang of criminals, Popla Harka. Now, this is the biggest robbery committed by Tony Blair against the social housing in Tower Hamlets. And quite how these criminals at I newspaper can write a heading like Return of Tony Blair. Well, they don't call him Liar. They call him Return of Tony Liar. Tony Blair. I've used the Beliar so often since 1997 when I coined the phrase that I cannot say Tony Blair without reverting to Tony Blair. And the stupid morons at the I newspaper are saying, revealed how ex-PM's think tank has growing influence on labor policy. Now, remember, anyone who is watching this and has been watching this since I started broadcasting in during 2020. Well, I've been saying it in writing elsewhere, but in the context of the broadcast, I have described Keir Starmer in this phrase, the political murderer of the Labour Party. When I coined that phrase, I never knew what exact words these idiots like the I newspaper would say 4 years on, which is today, 4 calendar years on, let's say. And I didn't know the internal communications between Tony Blair and the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. But I knew that enough indications existed outside to convince me that they were murdering the Labour Party's aims and objects. One of the objects of the Labour Party's foundation 100 years ago was to improve the quality of life of the people in poverty, in areas like the East End of London, in especially the Poplar area, which is where the Lansbury Estate ward is situated, Crisp Street Market is situated. And apart from me taking part in the number of so-called television discussions, there was nobody else taking part, but nobody else was aware of the existence of the Poplar councillors in 1921, let alone the stand that they took against the Conservatives, who were attacking the people of Poplar, East London. So, the presenter of this program talked about the councillors like comparable with members in Bangladesh. Well, that is a stupid comparison. The councillors in Tower Hamlets or any other part of England cannot be compared with the setting in Bangladesh. The comparison must only be made about these councillors' fitness, fitness to represent the people that they get the votes before they become elected. And there is no sign that any of these so called television outlets, talk shows, is conducted with any knowledge about what is going on. Now, this particular presenter, Shuaib, is not expected to know what is going on because he only arrived under still mysterious kind of program in the 1990s, and he's still shown no capacity to understand the democratic structure of a local council. He started talking about his being deleted from the Boishaki Mela board by John Biggs. And he said that he spoke to Mansur Ahmad, who was the employee in Tower Hamlets Council at the time that John Biggs was in post and at the time that this particular alleged decision was made. Now, what's the point of talking to Mansur Ahmad? And what is the point of talking about being a member of the Boishaki Mela? Boishaki Mela is a gross corruption, a grotesque corruption from start to finish. And what was the capacity that Shoaib brought to the table to the members of the board of and who be the whole purpose, the whole purpose of the idea of campaign in a democratic objective sense, as I define it based on the empirical records only, is to challenge something that is being done which is wrong. So if we campaign against Crossrail, for example, we campaign against Crossrail digging a hole in the middle of Brick Lane, destroying the whole area. If we campaign against Monica Ali prostituting herself on the back of Brick Lane and serving her racist masters and mistresses by prostituting herself as the daughter of a Bengali father, not a Siloti father, but Bengali father and a white mother. Monica Ali has been recruited as a prostitute by the racists who want to add to the agenda, to the narrative of attacking the Siloti speaking Muslim Bangladeshi community in Brick Lane and in the neighboring parts. A campaign is to stop Monica Ali, which we did, because they wanted to film in Brick Lane itself a prostitute version of the so-called fiction, which was absolute lie. And most of the so-called artists were recruited from, guess what? Not even from Bengal or Bangladesh, but West Bengal of India, who could not be more strange. So this is a kind of contemporary, current exhibition of the corruption and criminality that the Khoodeelaar campaign is dedicated against. For example, in my broadcast that I wrote and presented on the Channel 4 News slot in January 1992, I said to John Major, who was the Prime Minister at the time, that his then imminent speech due to be delivered to the General Assembly of the United Nations in his capacity as the then incumbent Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, that should be dedicated to real action being in the Western countries, dealing with the catastrophic nightmare scenario that I predicted in that broadcast would happen when people from Africa and Asia would want to descend on Western countries in search of civil liberties, in search of economic freedom and opportunities. I said that because I realized at that time, and I still realize, and I have been in realization continuously for the 31 years since January 1992, that because of the brainwashing done by the media and the political system, so called, the ordinary citizen in the Western countries would be most open to exploitation and manipulation in a way that would be capable of inciting them into expressing hatred against refugees and migrants. And as Imran Khan in Pakistan has recently recognized, there is no such place as comfortable, as homely as your own home country, your homeland. So, no one in their right minds would want to leave their own country, the place of their birth, place of their upbringing, unless severe, desperate events force them to contemplate leaving their country. Now, at the head of this evidence, the migrant coming from African Asia for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It is plain and obvious that this is the most important, the hottest political topic that and place seekers and spot seekers and wannabe candidates from any now, in the years that Tony Blair has been acting as the prostitute for interests similar to the Saudis, interests similar to the fascists in the areas like Kazakhstan, Tony Blair has never to be the satanic prostitute. Nobody, including the Guardian, has ever published an account of where Tony Blair has offered what original thought or advice to anyone. So the question today, Saturday, the 19th of August 2023, when this idiotic newspaper is running this stupid piece, The Return of Tony Blair. What the fuck does he bring to the table except the destruction, except the robbery, except the massacres of the innocent people of Afghanistan and of Iraq? Can anyone, can absolutely anyone cite on the record one single year in the last 22 years, let's say, since Tony Blair acted as the prostitute for George W. Bush, not Galloway, George W. Bush? And in a different way, that Churchill asked his son's daughter to sleep with influential Americans to get them to tell her how best to influence the mind of the then American president, so that the American president at that time would support the British front vis-a-vis Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. I don't say that Winston Churchill was anti-fascist or that he was opposed to the Nazis. I say vis-a-vis. Note the distinction. So Tony Blair has been paid literally hundreds of millions of pounds in the last 20 years, let's say. Now, where the fuck is the secret of his wisdom? What is it based on? Except insider dealings, insider information. The only thing that Tony Blair could have been in possession of, would have been in his possession, would have come to his possession only while he was incumbent in the post of Prime Minister in the name of the United Kingdom. That's the most. So that's the original contribution by and he then prostituted himself by selling it or selling access to part of that to the likes of the Saudi regime, to the likes of the Kazakhstan regime. So Tony Blair is not an original thinker. He's an original prostitute. And when the I newspaper stupidity because it doesn't know what damage Tony Blair did to the, let's say, body politic of the United Kingdom as a state, as a parliament. Tony Blair deregulated whatever, even during the period of the conservative fronted, John Major fronted years, deregulated the state. And the result was the financial crisis, the banking crisis, the collapse of 2008. Don't the fucking I newspaper shitbags have any idea what the facts are? They're supposed to be journalists about facts, you fucking morons. So he bankrupted the council, Harmless Council. When I extrapolation, he bankrupted the entire local government administration structure. Not only that, Tony Blair imposed the draconian, anti-democratic, fascistic office of mayor. It didn't exist in this country. Executive mayor didn't exist in the United Kingdom until the fascist Tony Blair introduced it. Why the fuck? All the studies, all the evidence of the behavior of mayors in the United States over decades showed and continue to show that having an executive mayor is bound to be by definition against democracy, against democratic accountability. So when he foisted the absolutely dubious Frank Dobson as the candidate for the Labour Party in the name of the Labour Party to become the first elected mayor in the name of London. What did Dobbo Dobson offer? Dobbo Dobson came across as a Dobbo Dobson. Stupid. And as the previous decades, especially the decades since 1986, well, the years, let's say, years since the ouster by Margaret Thatcher, the destruction of the Greater London Council, the GLC, because Thatcher wanted to destroy was to stop the Greater London Council business at public. And as soon as Margaret Thatcher destroyed the GLC, Ken Lyons to Livingstone made it his duty, his business, his purpose to find a way to create a platform that resembled the Greater London wide platform that the GLC was. So when Tony Blair became the leader of the Labour Party, Ken Lyons to Livingstone was very much actively engaged in lobbying Tony Blair to persuade him to create a London wide platform, which Tony Blair did, but Tony Blair could not have done that solely on the advice or on the urgings of Ken Lyons to Livingstone. There must have been other factors, which I shall be discussing in later parts of this essay length analysis of the London wide scandal, which will be published and broadcast over several editions of the Khoodeelaar television channel, not just on this particular edition. So when Frank Dobbo Dobson turned out to be a complete Dobbo Dobson, obvious victim of Ken Lyons to Livingstone's manipulations and connections, and he got defeated by Ken Lyons to Livingstone at the first election which took place in 2000. Tony Blair knew that it was a mistake to put forward Dobbo Dobson. And Tony Blair was, because he has no morality, he was mentally prepared to let Ken Lyons to Livingstone back into the Labour Party, and he agreed to let Ken Lyons to Livingstone become the official candidate for the post of Mayor of London at the 2004 election, which is what Ken Lyons to Livingstone got, and he won it. In the period between 2000 and 2008, Ken Lyons to Livingstone did fuck all for London. And Ken Lyons to Livingstone recruited not one, but a number of criminals from the ethnicity background So much so that before the 2008 mayoral election came up, Ken Lyons to Livingstone was already declared a political liability. So relentless was the evidential coverage of the scandals that Ken Lyons to Livingstone had surrounded himself by that it would be unthinkable that Ken Lyons to Livingstone could get re-elected again at the 2008 election. Not only had he recruited dubious individuals of ethnicity backgrounds from areas like Tower Hamlets, he had also become notorious for being an alcoholic, as if those were not bad enough. He brought the glass of alcohol to the hocus pocus bogus sessions of the question time at the Great Illinois Assembly, where he came across as really unfit for purpose. The series of reports that the London Evening, No Standard published about Ken Livingstone Livingstone's advisor, Lee Jasper, were so devastating that ordinary people in London contemplating voting for the mayoral election due in 2008 had already made up their mind as to what to do, and they were increasingly hostile to voting for Ken Lyons to Livingstone. Was it bad enough? It was bad enough, but Ken Lyons to Livingstone made it even worse. How did he do that? Ken Lyons to Livingstone decided to target a London then Evening Standard reporter called Oliver Finegold. Now, Oliver Finegold is a very difficult name to remember for me, someone of Asian background. This was Oliver Finegold, who was of Jewish origin and was doing his reporting job. When he asked Ken Livingstone Livingstone one evening what Ken Livingstone had been up to, which is what a reporter would ask if they had the salt. And Ken Livingstone Livingstone mounted an immediate anti Jewish attack on Oliver Finegold. Now, that had no basis, no justification for Ken Livingstone Livingstone to do that. Because Oliver Finegold didn't ask Ken Livingstone Livingstone a question based on Oliver Finegold's ethnicity or Ken Livingstone Livingstone's ethnicity or religion or history or whatever. It was to do with what Ken Livingstone Livingstone was doing as the incumbent in the post of mayor at the expense of the people of London. But as soon as this incident happened, Ken Livingstone Livingstone should have known, and if he didn't know that, that was even more stupid, that his political career was hanging on a balance. Because Oliver Finegold came across as doing a perfect job of being a reporter. And Ken Livingstone fucked up big time by picking on Oliver Finegold and comparing him, Oliver Finegold, with the Nazi guard at a concentration camp run by the Nazis. How stupid could anyone get? So this was all directly resulting from Ken Livingston Livingstone being given a platform by the stupid liar, war criminal, Tony Blair. Because being in a post that is not accountable to anyone, it's an anti democratic post, a fascistic post, a dictatorial post, meant that somebody who was of no real moral scruples would abuse their position, which is exactly what Ken Livingston Livingstone did in dealing with Oliver Feingold and the other people who wanted to know from the Greater London Assembly questions about Lee Jasper. Now, Lee Jasper was only an advisor. Lee Jasper was not a publicly elected holder of a post. He was only serving Ken Livingston Livingstone. It was Livingston Livingstone who owed the duty and the obligation to answer to the members of the Greater London Assembly for whatever wrongs that the Evening Standard's investigations had revealed about his advisor. But when questioned by the members at the mayor's question time, Ken Livingston Livingstone, carrying carrying a glass of wine or alcohol, kept challenging members of the assembly to go upstairs in the city hall and ask his advisor. They had no duty to do that. And he said, Ken Livingston Livingstone did, that Ken Livingston Livingstone, would put his life, his safety in the hands of his advisor. Now, that was not the question. The question was what had actually happened. And Ken Livingston Livingstone was not up to the scratch. He didn't have the fitness to even answer questions properly without shaking his hand with the alcohol. Let's check on what happened with this particular one. So this was the Sikh advisor, Davindarjit Singh. But the more notorious events concerned Lee Jasper. And Ken Langs to Livingstone repeatedly said to the members of the Greater London Assembly to go upstairs and ask Lee Jasper. Now, according to the Guardian piece on the 4th of March 2008, there is an item Lee Jasper, the mayor of London's controversial and increasingly beleaguered race advisor, resigned today after enduring months of allegations of impropriety and cronyism. Jasper, who was suspended from his job by the mayor last month, finally fell on his sword following fresh allegations that he had failed to declare his friendship with a woman involved with two organizations that received thousands in funding from the mayor's office. A spokesman for the Greater London Authority paid tribute to his record in fighting racism, but added Lee Jasper has stated that in light of material published today, that he has tendered his resignation. The mayor has accepted it. The claims were made in today's London Evening Standard, that is the 4th of March 2008, which the mayor's supporters say has been trying to smear Livingston to ruin his chances of re election on the 1st of May. The paper obtained a number of emails that appear to show the flirtatious relationship between Jasper and Karan Chauhan, the company secretary of the 1990 Trust and director of the Black Londoners Forum. In one email, Jasper apologizes for forgetting Chauhan's birthday, adding, I want to whisk you away to a deserted island beach, honey glaze you, let you cook slowly before a torrid and passionate embrace. In another, the mayoral aide writes, how many ways do I love thee? As much as Brazil national football team or acai and saltfish. I love the feet, ankles, legs, thighs, bum and belly, arms, head and brain. But most of all, I love you in a flaming red sari, bangles chains, or failing that, in a bikini. Chauhan dismissed the emails as just banter and said she had never had a sexual relationship with Jasper. There is a close relationship, that's for sure, but it's never been an affair. She told the paper. There is a very close bond. We are often seen together, but I am a happily married woman. Jasper denied any impropriety, saying that he did not comment on his private life. The new allegations are the latest in a series of Evening Standard stories that have accused Jasper of cronyism and impropriety. Their publication a day before Jasper was due to explain himself to the assembly suggests the paper was trying to ratchet up the pressure on one of London's Livingstone's closest advisors. Last December, the Standard alleged that more than £2 million of City Hall money had been improperly awarded to 12 organizations run by friends and associates of Jasper. And it goes on, and there is plenty of other materials available online and in the archives about Ken Livingston Livingstone fucking up big time, and Lee Jasper having been exposed in the Evening Standard operations, forced to resign, thus adding credibility to various allegations that both of them denied, but those denials made no sense at all because they stuck. The allegations stuck despite the denials, and they kept adding to the credibility of an alternative. Can you believe that? An alternative to Ken Livingston Livingstone. Step forward, Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson won, of course. Back to the election, Ken Livingston Livingstone, because he found himself surrounded by, besieged by the series of disclosures in the Evening Standard, decided to try Tower Hamlets, the ethnicity linked part of the population in Tower Hamlets that George Git Galloway had exploited in 2003 and 2005 in the immediate aftermath of Galloway being kicked out of the Labour Party by Tony Blair. What happened then was that one of Ken Livingston Livingstone's advisors, who had been a Tower Hamlets councillor, Kumar Morshid, was publicly reported as having been involved in a series of criminality that the prosecution, initiated by the Tower Hamlets Council's leadership in the form of Abbasuddin Ali Salal, the prosecution resulted in a number of people being sent to jail. But those people did not include Kumar Morshid. But despite the fact that Morshid was spared a prison, word in the community persists even today that the reason why Ken Livingstone's advisor, Kumar Morshid, was not jailed was because Kumar Morshid persuaded another individual, a councillor from Tower Hamlets, to confess to the crimes that had been alleged against Kumar Morshid. So again, despite the fact that both Morshid and others denied the allegations, the mud stuck. And the consistency of the mud remains to this day that Ken Livingston Livingstone foraged into Tower Hamlets in search of possible suitable ethnic surrogates, ethnic slaves, mental slaves. Of course, Livingstone was able to recruit the support of the East London Mosque complex based operations. East London Mosque, the London Muslim Centre, and a thing called the IFE, as disclosed in the Dispatches program broadcast on the 1st of March 2010 on Channel 4, fronted by Andrew Gilligan. Now, Gilligan was the reporter also doing the main investigation into Lee Jasper and Ken Livingston Livingstone at the GLC, at the GLA, Greater London Assembly. So, what we are saying all of this about is that the item, the return of Tony Blair as the policy kind of advisor and the policy framer of the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, is completely misleading on several counts. Not that they wouldn't want to have the liar run the Labour Party again, but that they have forgotten the litany of lies and disasters and failures that Tony Blair brought against the people of London and against the people, in particular, of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Of course, we shall be talking about all of these in the essay length diagnostics. Now, there is this coverage of this serial murderess of the babies. Lucy Letby. We cannot begin to discuss this at this stage, in this edition, except to say that we shall be diagnosing the real death of the National Health Service, the real death of the culture of accountability by public officials, publicly employed servants, staff. Anyone who knows about the National Health Service on the ground, in the hospitals, will know that there is no culture of accountability whatsoever. Now, that is responsible not for 7 or 14 murders. That is responsible for literally thousands of murders. We shall be talking about all of those in due course, of course. Finally, on the question of Imran Khan being incarcerated in Pakistan by the military, there is this piece in the Hindustan Times, a comment piece, saying that Imran Khan has been practically written off and nobody is outcrying, despite the fact that he is in jail, etc., etc. Well, the essential truth is that Imran Khan has been hijacked, kidnapped. There has been no trial. Can anyone say what the allegations are, what the evidence was, and what the basis for his being imprisoned is, or was, or has been? There is no question that Imran Khan should not be banned from standing in public office at all. We shall be talking about all of those in detail in due course in later editions. This has been now 1 hour and 10 minutes, 1 hour and 11 minutes, let's say. We shall be ending this at 08:35 GMT on Saturday, the 19th of August 2023.